you think of the litigation that potentially come from this whole stuff that's coming out with the claims of President Monson being involved with all this garbage?
I don't.
Would be the thing that could break up the church financially.
I'll tell you what worries me more than that. The fact that anybody could believe that is a sign of such deep mental illness that not mental illness, that's the wrong term.
Well, whether they believe it or not, if they get sued, they lose litigation.
I don't think that'll do it. I'll tell you what I think it's got to be more subtle. The best way, I don't even know if I like to talk like this. This also invites like a 2-hour-long discussion of the prosecution of the Bundys, the Reds, and the nature of those prosecutions and why they were in Utah. That goes back a long time. But that's too. Okay, I gotta stop. I'm going down a rabbit hole. I want to touch on the irrational thinking. There is an epidemic of stupidity right now. Like literally an inability to think rationally. And it's the weirdest thing to me. And you see it in the modern anti-Mormon sentiment and within the church itself. And I suspect that irrationality comes from refusal to believe doctrine. And doctrine is truth. So one, we have a people who are unable to defend their own religion because they don't understand it, which means we're creating people who don't know how to think clearly and defend clearly. When you create that problem, you can't possibly understand the nature of a corporate organization. Okay, I think this is the way the church falls. If you do not understand how a person is not a corporation and how a corporate fiction is a dangerous policy to embrace culturally and politically. Why? What is a corporation? It's a legal fiction. What's the purpose of the legal fiction? To insulate real people from liability and consequence. Okay, so if you have real people and corporate fictions, and you believe in a corporate fiction, what have you done to yourself? You've fragmented your brain to believe something that doesn't exist. And you have put faith in a thing that literally does not exist and cannot exist because there's no such thing as a thing that can act on its own. That's what people do. People are imbued with moral agency. But we've bought into this notion that there's this thing called a corporation. So what happens when you believe, who created corporate doctrine? The government. Why did the government create corporate doctrine? So who owns the corporation? The government. Why? Because the government created the infrastructure of the corporate fiction so you could avoid reality. So at the end of the day, when the corporate fiction stops working, who owns all the property in the United States? The corporations. Who owns the corporations? How hard is it to nationalize once everybody has bought into the corporate fiction? And how can the church say to the government, in this moment of national economic crisis, we deserve to maintain our corporate fiction control over all of this property that we own? How would you defend that? Well, just think legally defend it. We have a national economic emergency. We deserve to keep the land. And the government's like, what do you mean you deserve to keep the land? You've lived under our corporate fiction and our tax benefits for 100 years. Of course you don't own the land. You bought into the system. You joined us. You joined our Gadianton scheme. And now you want to keep the land you claim to own under a corporate fiction that we created for you? That's nonsense. You participated in the lie. Of course you don't get to keep it. You believed that which wasn't so. You can't prosper in that regard. It goes all the way back to Johnson v. McIntosh, which is a Supreme Court case, which John Marshall, supposedly one of the greatest Supreme Court justices that ever lived, where he said the ultimate title to all land is vested in the United States government. So how do you see where I'm going? Like you create an economic crisis by, let's follow this through. You have an economic crisis, okay, during a super controversial election where Jacob, i.e. the Antichrist figure of the Book of Mormon, comes against the Laconius, right? Here's Donald Trump over here. And I don't know if I feel really comfortable calling Donald Trump a Laconius, but he seems to match. And his promise is the restoration of the golden era of the Nephites. But you have this reality facing you, which is, and you can see this in the Book of Mormon, the rise of a world economy and outside forces that are becoming more economically powerful than you are. And how do you prevent those outside forces from overcoming your economic capabilities? Especially when your whole system is literally going bankrupt, and we all know that, right? So how do you fix that problem? Well, while you're trying to fix that problem, the other side's literally trying to murder you, has already tried once, and the Democrat Party is dead, and the Republican Party is dying. So, well, I got to show you this too. It's not enough to just see the economic crisis here. Okay, the collapse of the currency, the debt. When you also see that one side is literally fighting for its liberty. And I don't mean liberty in the good sense. Let me show you how this works, okay? So imagine you have an economic crisis which justifies revocation of tax-free status because you can't afford to let people not pay in to the system to save the system. And at the same time, watch what's also happening. There began to be men inspired from heaven, standing among the people, preaching and testifying boldly of the sins and iniquities of the people, and testifying concerning the redemption which the Lord would make for his people. Okay, so just parse the grammar there for a second. Are all of them testifying against the sins and iniquities of the people and the redemption the Lord would make? Or is it possible that there are many people and some are testifying of the sins and iniquities and others are testifying of the Lord? And who's the bigger threat? Okay, what is Charlie Kirk? Which of those is Charlie Kirk? And is he murdered for that? Okay. What about the two senators from Minnesota who get murdered? And the guy says, I did it. It was a political assassination. How about the CEO of the healthcare company who's gearing up to testify before Congress, and somebody walks up, shoots him, kills him?
What was he testifying?
So they were going to hearings before Congress relative to they are the biggest health insurance company in the world. Yeah, and they're a subsidiary. And he was part of some hearings that were coming up. And so I can't say that I know, I kind of believe that's why, but if you just listen to what the guy said who killed him, it's a lot like the guy who kills the two Minnesota senators. He admits he killed him because of his corporate greed and what the insurance companies do to the people. And he was an Antifa guy. So you've already got that happening, okay? And who just got, Comey got indicted by a grand jury. Bolton got indicted by a grand jury. Why? Why would you indict Bolton and Comey? This is United States Attorney's Office Prosecution 101. If you're going after a terrorist cell like, who do you go after first? The drug cartel, who do you prosecute first? The little guys. And you get them to turn on the bigger guys, and you offer them immunity if they will tattle on the guys above. Okay, so why would you go after a Bolton and a Comey? You don't want Bolton and Comey. Who do you want? Whoever's up the ladder. You want Jacob, and that's who's about to show up in the Book of Mormon. So you got these people who are exceedingly angry because of the testimonies that are coming out. And they are who? What is a chief judge in the Book of Mormon? A chief judge is not a judge, it's a politician. Okay? And they're getting mad, and so are the high priests. What's a high priest? I'm not going to talk about that. And lawyers. And they're mad. So what do they start doing? They don't have power to kill people, but what are they doing? They're secretly killing people. And Laconius finds out that they are killing these people, and Laconius starts to prosecute these people for their murders. So you're like, hey, we're in trouble because Laconius got power back. We got to start killing people who are going to tell on us. They start killing people who are going to tell on them. Laconius finds out. Laconius starts the prosecutions in the middle of an election where his son needs to win because a prosecution takes 8 years. You can't do it in 4 years. So if Laconius wins the next election, what does that mean for these people? They're toast. So Laconius wins. So what do? It's not enough to kill the underlings now. This guy's got 4 more years to prosecute us. So Jacob says, kill him. And Jacob is the chief amongst those. He doesn't say, it doesn't even say Jacob is the one running for office. It says Jacob is one of the chiefest who gave his voice against the prophets. And Jacob promises all the people, he's like, don't worry, we're going to win this. They lose, they kill Laconius, and he's like, we got to get out of here. And they flee to the northernmost parts of the land. Well, what escalates it all? It's the election cycle where there's these prosecutions going on. By the way, they murder him 9 years after the COVID siege, which ends within 5 years, which is 29 years after they see the sign of the coming of Christ, or the Palmyra sign in 2000. Now, if all this were true, right, again, this is just a theoretical exercise in likening the scriptures to ourselves, and I don't do a very good job of it. I really don't. There are, like I've got 369 slides, which represents probably about 2,000 slides that could compare. If you've seen my presentation, the southern kingdom of Judah, the northern kingdom of Israel, the judges that match, how the earthquake in Utah lines up, like all of these things just line up into this chronology or timeline, which makes it look like the Book of Mormon is actually predicting when Christ will come. So if all of this really is kind of matching up and really is the most correct of any book on earth, and as Alma says in Alma 37, the Book of Mormon is a liahona, which will show you all the things that you should do. What's going on here? Like, why all these coincidences? Why can we make such a compelling case that the Elder Bednar's talk? Did anybody listen to Elder Bednar's talk in the space of not many years? Remember what he compared that to? He took a very narrow window of the Book of Mormon. He put it on a very narrow window of our time about President Benson, which lines up exactly with this timeline. So, all right. What do you do? What do you do as a member of the church when you can jump into the deep end of crazy, and then the prophet gets up and says, hey, the second coming is near. You're like, what should I do? And then remember President Nelson in October of 2020, where he's like to the women of the church, prepare places of security, both temporally and spiritually. And I was like, now I really need to go crazy, right? Because should I stockpile food? Should I build a bunker? So remember when President Nelson saying this, and did you think, well, he's going to tone it down? And then he doesn't. And remember his last talk? What did he say in his last talk? What's the phrase he used? The Lord is urging me to tell you to prepare for the second coming. That's crazy. That's kind of irresponsible. Because people like... Well, people like me, excuse me, people like me hear that, and I'm like, I got to build a bunker. I got to get off grid. And then I come out and I meet people like you, and I'm like, oh, there's other people like me. There's crazy people all over the place.
How do you think President Oak's background comes up, like being a lawyer and judge?
So I told you about the timeline that the Shemini Atzeret that he's sustained on and what it means. And you get President Nelson between Passover and Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. So if you look at his first talk, okay, what's the two things? I would say there's two things of kind of that are a little bit shocking about what President Oaks did. One, no temples at all. Two, he got up and he doubled down on the family proclamation. And he didn't just kind of double down on the family proclamation. He went old school Mormonism. He was like, be families who do family reunions and who tame the wilderness and who create family producers, not consumers. And you're like, that's like antiquated talk. Like, what do you... If I played devil's advocate, I'm like, that's not the step the church needs to go in to get more converts. That's not politically correct. Like, it's time to... and then, I'm not going to get into this, right? But you release the papers by... the John Taylor letter about polygamy, and you're like, why did you do that? Like, that's something you should be like, you should have just kept that hidden. And they're about to release the William Clayton journals, which has got polygamy stuff in it. You're like, and then they release the DNC 132 children's Come Follow Me, and you're like, what are you guys doing? Like, that's the old stuff. We need to break away from that. We're in Africa now. We're in, you know what I mean? And that was kind of President Oak's talk. It was old school Mormonism. And so you ask, like, what does that mean? Well, you've got a doctor ruling over the church during a pandemic at a hinge point. And I got to get back to the grape harvest. The hinge point is the change from the harvest of the wheat to the grape harvest. And when the wheat harvest ends, you have to already be in the garner, because you wheat are done. Your time's over. And I'll show you the grape harvest in Revelation 14, which is why understanding Revelation 12 and 13 is so important. If you think that you're still waiting to see the fulfillment of Revelation 13 and the mark of the beast, you're 115 years behind. And you've missed completely that the fig shoots have already appeared and we've started the summer harvest. So here's Revelation 14. And I think so. President Oaks is a judge and lawyer. So you have a judge and a lawyer coming in on Shemini Atzeret, and 7.5 years from now is April of 2033. What's the Book of Mormon say in the 34th year, which is 2033? And let me. I got to finish the Book of Mormon too. That's where I was going with that. And sorry. Yeah, the grape. Okay, so imagine 2028. You see the most contentious election you've ever seen, and in 2029, Laconius II wins the election, and they murder him. Okay, if you're in a Hebrew year, the murder would take place somewhere between April and October, roughly, of the 30th year, which for us would be 2029, April to October. A president usually takes office in January, which if you're on a Hebrew year is still in the preceding year. And they get going. They filled their cabinet by about summer, and by fall, they're rolling. Their appointments are going through the Senate, right? And then, right now, this is Trump's first year. You're seeing Trump kind of come into the realization of the exercise of the executive power by about October to the end of the year, because positions are filled, etc. The other side murders Laconius II. And again, liken this to ourselves. 2029, you've just had, let's say, whoever Trump's successor is gets murdered. You know who did it, right? Because we've seen it happening. And every time somebody's killed, there's like this leftist wacko behind it. And then you've got the other side being like, well, he was, filled with the rhetoric of hate. And you're like, okay, well, everybody's escalating in this death cult, right? They're killing each other, and sure enough, they do. And this, you imagine, let's say Trump's successor gets assassinated. Do you think that America will be like, oh, well, let's just pick the other guy? So what happens? What happens if... Okay, so now the Book of Mormon, interestingly, says they did not go to war. So how would you forestall the war? You'd point out the person who did it. In this case, it was Jacob and his followers. They get identified, and they take off. And it says, so speedy was their flight, they couldn't catch them. So now let's say they've run off, you couldn't catch them, and everybody's like, what are we going to do? We've got, it's 2029. We've got 4 years till the next president takes office, and the next election would be when? 4 years from 2028, so 2032. So what if the states are like, hey, we got to have a convention. We got to fill the presidency. So everybody please do not secede, because you have a secession crisis brewing, right? Like California is like, we're out of here with Oregon and Washington. Texas is like, we've already got documents written up. If we don't get this fixed, we're gone. And so Congress is like, and all the governors are like, just give us a year. Give us till the end of the year. So in the Book of Mormon, it says there's this great contention, but everybody's gone wicked. Even the more righteous part have gone wicked. And why are they wicked? Because they won't acknowledge that Christ is coming. And they're trying to... Imagine D&C 87 says, the Lord will bring the full end of all nations, and here's the end of our nation, and all Mormons are trying to save the nation while the Lord's bringing it down. Like in exact accord with the Book of Mormon. 6 years had not passed away since the more part of the people had turned from their righteousness, like the dog to his vomit, or like the sow to her wallowing in the mire. And part of this is, you don't have a people who understand the body politic. They really believe that their system is good. And they believe it's good because they love mammon more than God. They don't want Christ to come. They want their Disneyland vacations back. They want their kids in public school. They want to go to the universities. They want the old America back that they fell in love with from the 1950s to the 1980s. And so Jacob runs off. They're united in the hatred of the people who caused this America to fall. And so Jacob, again, it just keeps talking about how Jacob takes off. And look at right here. See, for a year, they try to keep it together. They have a secession crisis because the two sides cannot get along anymore. And all Americans can do, Americans are so dumb, all they can do is think Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative. And that's what they're still doing right here. Like, we're got to get it back together. And the Californians can't love Texans, and Texans and can't love, and Eastern Oregon can't like Western Oregon because they're liberal and I'm conservative. And so at the end of the 31st year, the secession crisis completes itself. They try for a year to keep it together. They can't, and they divide. So imagine at the end of 2030, the president got assassinated in that year, probably towards the beginning of the year. And the Congress and the governors are like, hold on, we'll get it together. They can't. We have this massive secession crisis in 2030. And then you've got all the politicians saying, don't worry, we've got an election coming up in 2032. Right, we'll get it back together in 2032. We'll get a new president. We'll reunify America, and we'll just keep on going. Yeah, and we've got those coming, right? So, and they'll be in Utah. And so Utah is like the biggest advocate of reconciliation, because the one thing Utahns love more than anything else is money and their vanities. And so it came to pass the 31st year, they're divided into these tribes. Now, in the Book of Mormon, there's 48 named cities. Okay, and in 3rd Nephi chapter 8, there are 16 of them destroyed completely. So 16 is what percent of 48? 1/3 of the named cities get destroyed by name. They have this, now here's where this is a little concerning. Liken this to yourself. Okay, let's say the Lord is coming to Adam-on-Diamond in 2033, just like he came to the Nephites in Bountiful in the 34th year. Okay? And you're like, hey, I want to be there. I want to go to Adam-on-Diamond. Okay, so if again, theoretical exercise, I got to be in Missouri in 2033. Okay, when should I be prepared to go? Should I be prepared before the secession crisis? So that means I got to be prepared by 2029. So let's say that I'm not prepared by 2029. I'm like, it's okay. I've got till the 34th year, which is 2033. Look at what they make laws about. You can't go anywhere. Interstate commerce is dead. You can't cross borders. Why? Because in this secession crisis, and this happened during COVID, Washington, Oregon, and California threatened to create a pact against the other states who would not enforce the stricter COVID laws. Maine drafted laws of success, what do you call it, a secession document when Trump took office this year, because Trump was threatening to pull transgender funding from schools. So Maine, of course, threatened to secede for his irrationality. So imagine that. So you're not ready. You're like, hey, I've got till 2033 to get ready. And all of a sudden, it's the 2030, and the secession crisis says you can't go to Missouri. You can't even go to Utah anymore. Because nobody will like Utah. You know why? Because Utah doesn't take a side. Utah will not be with Texas, and Utah will not be with California, because Mormons love nothing more than being loved by everyone and being nice to everyone. Because if I'm nice to you, you might join my church with me. That's what we do. It's weird. And well, anyway, I'm not going to get into that.
The great lie, in so much that some degree they had peace in the world.
Yeah.
Right?
Nevertheless,
They're thinking that we're all good.
Yeah. And the Lord is like saying, no, you're not. So, okay, so imagine here you are, 2030, and you're like, I've still got time to prepare. And now all of a sudden there's all these no trespass laws. You can't travel anymore. So now you're not prepared, right? So if you need to be prepared by 2030, all of a sudden there's no interstate commerce, strict travel laws. So when should you be prepared? Probably prior to the election in 2028. But if you try in 2028 and you're like saving it to the last minute, and all of a sudden the president gets assassinated, the economy blows up, when should you really be prepared? And now. Like, when you think of like the days of probation, what are all the people, if we fast forward, how does the Lord disrupt this plan to get the Nephite union back together again? Right in the very year that they're about to have a new election to reestablish peace, what does the Lord do? He's like, nope. And he brings this cataclysmic destruction upon the people that just wipes out their entire nation. So now the people who are righteous, the remnant, can now travel to Bountiful.
Called DARPA.
It's called what? DARPA. So I never put stock into this before, but I've been looking at like polar shifts. And when you look at the scriptural text where the Lord says things like the earth will reel like a drunken man to and fro, be turned out of its place, isles will flee, mountains will become valleys, and valleys will become mountains. And Nephi says there will be a vapor of darkness that must come upon this earth according to the flesh. So when you think about like, if there is divine design, and one of the divine designs of the world is a controlled polar shift, that would create dust clouds, earth. And here's why I normally don't even talk about this, right? But look at these terms that he uses. Some people by this time know what's happening. They know it's coming. Other people are still like, nah, it's not coming. Like in the 4 days, this is that 4-day window I was talking about earlier. Look at the term here. 30 and 4th year, 1st month, 4th day. Mormon, Mitch and I were talking about this on our drive out to Snowflake. Mormon is very precise about this time. On purpose. Why would Mormon be so precise about this date? Where else does Mormon say 1st month, 4th day? I could go into an entire presentation on Holy Week and Passover week and the creation based upon just this verse and how it testifies when Christ is coming. And this connects you to the creation story. The 4th day of the creation story is the day in which the sun is created. When the sun shines upon his people, when Christ is upon the earth, Christ has to die before the end of the 4th day, because on the 5th day, the beasts of the sea are created. The beast will rise out of the sea on the beginning of the 5th day after Christ dies. So Mormon is being consistent with this timeline of the creation week and Passover week. And Mormon says there was a storm, such an one as never had been known, and a tempest. Now guess what the definition of a storm is? A tempest. So why would Mormon use synonyms to specifically describe an event, 2 different verses? Which one is which? Okay, if you look up the definition of storm in the Webster's 1828, which is Joseph's time and language, a storm can be a political incursion or a violent assault upon a fortified place. And a tempest can be also a violent assault or a big, huge storm as you think of it today. So Mormon is using both words, which appear to mean kind of the same thing. But what's a type of storm we've never known? Can you think of any type of storm you've never known, and that storm would cause tempests, thunders? Oh, one of the verses in the Doctrine and Covenants is the lightning shoots from the east to the west. So have you ever seen like horizontal lightning? Exceedingly sharp lightnings, such as never had been known, that causes Zarahemla to take fire, Moroni to sink in the depths of the sea, earth to come up over land. Right? What causes this? A storm they've never known. So I can think of, we've never known a polar shift. We know science says they exist. Last one was 700,000 years ago. Super volcanoes. We know there's one in Idaho. Nuclear war can cause this.
Russia just said that they created a nuclear bomb that could actually cause this amount.
Did you see
We're going to be testing nukes underground.
Did you see the ICBM that hit Ukraine? Did anybody watch those videos of the Russian ICBMs hitting Ukraine? But they didn't have a payload. It's unbelievable. There's no way you can stop them. There's no defense system. China, Mark Milley was asked in an interview what he thought about China's hypersonic missile program. Have you heard about that one? And he said, we didn't know they had it. There's nothing you can do about it. So what do you... Okay, now the wheat harvest. One of the signs the Lord uses to tell us to prepare is when you see that summer is here. So if you take the Book of Mormon and you ask yourself, when did the wheat harvest end in the Book of Mormon? Or the comparable. And for them it would be the barley harvest. The Nephites are kind of the barley. I have a theory that they show up at Bountiful on Shavuot, but I don't feel really confident about that. But I think they would have understood that's what they were. So let's go back to Revelation 14. Now remember this one. This is the United States. This is the United States up to 1909 and the rise of the political party system under the two horns of the Lamb that lead to Hoover and Ezra Ziegel, which leads into us coming back to this point. Now, President Hinckley said the prophecy of Malachi is fulfilled. So if the hearts of the fathers have turned, where are all those fathers gathered? Where would they be? They're not here. They're up in heaven. They're in a council with the Lamb. They're at the holy Mount Zion up with the 144,000. And what does the council want to know? Can we destroy it all? That's what the angels are saying, let us go down and reap the world. And the Lord is like, remember in the wheat harvest, he's like, hold on a minute. Well, what happens when they're all gathered and the wheat harvest is over? The hour of judgment is here. And the Lord gives them permission to go down and take out and reap. One, get rid of all the people who still have the mark of the beast that they put on themselves back in 1909. And pour out without mixture my indignation. So what would you see? You'd see the darker signs of the times. And who warned of the darker signs of the times? President Nelson. And you'd see that it's time to be like the Nephites. Remember who you are, remember where you're supposed to be, and get ready. I saw one like in the Son of Man. The harvest of the earth is ripe. It is time to reap. And another angel came out of the temple having a sharp sickle, and he does what? This is not the wheat anymore. So where would you be gathering in the grapes at? Africa? Yeah. Until you filled how many barrels with wine? This is the wedding at Cana. The 6 barrels of wine. The water turned to wine. So how long does the grape harvest take? Long enough for the Lord to sneak in the back and touch the 6 barrels and turn them to wine. He shortens it. It happens quickly. And then the wedding is ready. So you've had the barley feast and you've had the wheat harvest. You've killed the meat, the lamb. You've got the barley and the wheat, so you can make what with barley and wheat? Bread. And now you need the wine. And once you have the bread and the wine ready, what's it time for? It's time for the bridegroom to come to the wedding. And it's time for the 5 virgins to get to the door and to have oil in their lamps. And why do you need oil in your lamps? Because the next harvest is the fall harvest of the oil and the olive oil. And the olive oil is the thing that you use at the temple ceremony to anoint those who have enough oil to be at the ceremony. And this is all the doctrine of Adam-on-Diamond. So once you, and this takes us all the way back to the beginning. This is the temple ceremony that you've all been to. You got sealed in the temple to your spouse, which is symbolic of the gathering at Adam-on-Diamond and the marriage of the bride to the bridegroom. And that's your invitation. You actually got clothed in the robes to be ready to go. How many members are like, hey, I've got my invitation to Adam-on-Diamond? They're like, no, let's go out and take these pictures and go on a honeymoon and make our parents spend thousands of dollars on these stupid feasts, and right? And then you're just broke. And then you got to go work some more to pay off your 30-year mortgage at the job you hate. Now I'm getting a little too personal, right? But that's the temple. And here it is, like the whole temple ceremony, like everything. What if in order to understand, you know when the women go to the wedding, they pull off their veil and they don't put it back on? And to know that, you have to go to the temple. To know that you've switched the robes, you have to have gone to the temple. To know that the work has been hastened, you have to know that the temple ceremony has been shortened and made so clear nobody could mistake it. So, like, what do you do with that? In my opinion, if you don't get ready, you're crazy. Or you call me crazy, which I admit I am. I'm crazy. I drank the Kool-Aid and jumped to the deep end. And I like it. So
Later, the deep end.
yeah, both of them. I invite all of you to be crazy with me. Okay, I'm sorry. I get like mush brain. Any questions? Thoughts? Corrections? Yeah.
How does the New Jerusalem building?
So
Maybe state the question.
how does the New Jerusalem happen? How does it fit into this? Okay, so if you go to, I don't know if I know the right answer, but I really like how it's explained in Ether chapter 13. Because I would say that Mormons have a lot of mythology that we cling to. And one of them is this Revelation 13, the mark of the beast. And we have this notion that we'll see it and we'll understand it, and none of us will take it upon ourselves. And then you realize that it happened 115 years ago.
Let's say all people,
Yeah. And that's what America did to the world. Right? America subjected everyone to an international banking cartel and criminal syndicate that has ruled over the world with usury for 115 years. And we teach our children, you want to see how bad this is? Remember Abinadi's conversation with the court of Noah? And he's like, you violated the 10 commandments. They're like, what do you mean? And so analyze that. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart. Cling to him and nobody else, right? I mean, no other gods before him. What do your public schools teach your children relative to the first commandment? Honestly. Okay, don't covet. What do your schools teach your boys to do in order to get a nice house and a nice car? If you want to marry somebody good, you got to make some money. So we teach you to deny God, covet, and to commit adultery against the Lord, to be out of fidelity with the Lord. That's adultery. When you go covet Babylon's things. So we teach our children in our public schools to break all of the 10 commandments. Go be a football player. Go be an actor. Go be a doctor. Go be a lawyer. Why? That stuff sucks. It does. It's horrible. Very few men today like their jobs. Very, very few. We do it to give our wives homes. And we take upon ourselves 30 years of financial slavery to give our families and our wives a home. And we hate it. But nobody cares. That's what we're taught at church. Go do that. Go sell your soul to the devil for 30 years. That's the 10 commandments. It's literally teach our children to violate the 10 commandments. So, why did I get onto that at all? I should have been answering this question. The New Jerusalem. Okay, I have no idea how it fits into this. What? Oh, because it's the... What's that? Yes, okay. It's both. Watch this, how it's both. And the Lord, it looks like contradictory language because we don't think from kind of a outside space and time perspective. Okay, so behold, they rejected all the words of Ether, for he truly told them of all things from the beginning of man. Now, remember, this is a Noah book. This book is of the dispensation of Noah. So if you ever wonder when you'll get the other scriptures, they're here. And they're sealed to the mind until you accept the Holy Ghost. And the Holy Ghost reveals them to you the way the Lord did to the brother of Jared. The Book of Mormon tells you this, okay? So, which means in the Book of Mormon you have all 7 dispensations represented. Behold, Ether saw the days of Christ. He spake concerning a new Jerusalem upon this land. And he spake also concerning the house of Israel and the Jerusalem from whence Lehi should come. That after it should be destroyed, it should be built up again, a holy city unto the Lord. Wherefore it could not be new. He's trying to, and you all know this, right? Because you've been raised to know this. That the Jerusalem over there is not the new Jerusalem. That's what he's saying. But Jerusalem will be built again after it's destroyed in Lehi's time, and it should be built unto the house of Israel. And a new Jerusalem should be built upon this land. Okay, so one comes down and is also built upon this land. Unto the remnant of the seed of Joseph, for which things there has been a type. You know, stop right there, because to understand the New Jerusalem and what's going on here, you have to understand who is the remnant of the seed of Joseph. And what is the type? Okay, look at the type. See who the type is? On the right side? Who had the coat with the remnant piece? Joseph in Egypt. Okay, so Joseph in Egypt is a type for who? The remnant of the seed of Joseph. Well, wait a second. The remnant of the seed of Joseph is Joseph in Egypt. So Joseph in Egypt is a type of Joseph in Egypt? Who is Joseph here? If Joseph in Egypt is the type, who's that? Joseph Smith. Joseph in Egypt was a type of Joseph Smith. So who's the seed of Joseph Smith? We are. All believers in the doctrine and law that Joseph gave, just as Moses gave laws of old, so Joseph gave. So in order to be the people who are going to build the New Jerusalem upon this land, you have to be the seed of Joseph Smith, i.e. the seed of his doctrine, the restoration, the seed of the restoration, the modern day house of Israel. And what's President Nelson saying? What was he saying? Okay, for as Joseph brought his father down the land of Egypt, even so he died there. Wherefore the remnant of the house of Joseph shall be built upon this land, and it shall be a land of their inheritance, and they shall build a holy city. What's that? The seed of Joseph Smith will build a holy city upon this land, and there shall be a new heaven and a new earth, and then cometh the New Jerusalem. Okay, well, what's the holy city like unto Jerusalem of old that will be built upon this land prior to the New Jerusalem coming down? Salt Lake City. So then there shall be a new heaven and a new earth, and then cometh the New Jerusalem, and blessed are they who dwell therein. So we've got Jerusalem of old, a place like Jerusalem built upon this continent, a new Jerusalem built upon this continent, and a new Jerusalem that will come down. And the New Jerusalem that will come down is named the same thing and called the same thing as the thing that we build. Why? Because there is only one city, New Jerusalem. And it transcends space and time. It is the current abode of Enoch and his people. And once you create something of the same type, they merge together and become one. And what we've created is we've created this mythology that, and I don't want to say anything that would disparage other work that I think is actually really good and really helpful to people, but we create mythologies of what that looks like, and we wait for something to occur that will not occur. And therefore we don't prepare because we don't believe we see the things in accord with our mythology in our head. So I would argue you don't build the New Jerusalem until you become a person who truly believes that you have to do the hard work to get to bountiful. And that's what happens to this remnant group of 2,500 people who show up at bountiful at the right time, who are prepared to go after the great destruction, and they build the kingdom of Christ on the American continent after they gather to bountiful.
So they go after the destruction,
Yeah.
even though the borders are cut off.
No, there's no more cut off. Everybody's dead. The tribes are destroyed. The cities are sunk.
Before the Amazon
That's before.
going down.
So remember that.
Something about it opens up. It opens up.
Okay, so remember how you've got this no trespass laws, and you got this group of people who are saying, I'm pretty sure the signs are fulfilled. We need to be ready to go. But you can't go because you've got the tribalism guarding the borders, and then all of a sudden there's this destruction. So these guys would be like, oh, it's time to go. The Lord just opened the borders.
Are there really borders at that point?
Yeah, right. Well, if you look at the symbolic parallel, John the Revelator has two types. He's got the third and the total. So if you see anything in a third, it is not the totality. So John promises all of us that we will get the totality, whereas the Nephites only got the third. So it's all, I mean, like, it's either all going down or it's all just symbolic of life, experiential life. And none of this will happen. Someday you'll die and you'll have your second coming with the Lord.
Mormon describes us. He says we were converted unto the true faith. We would not depart from it. They were firm, steadfast, immovable, willing with all diligence to keep the commandments of the Lord.
There's also a verse somewhere where it says, the people of the Lord are those who wait for him or watch. I've always felt like that was kind of the category of the people who really live like he's coming. All right. Any other?
Backtracking, you suggested that the church will be bankrupt.
Broken apart. Broken up, it says. Broken up.
Okay. So if that's the case, if it has no money and all that, do the tax stuff and all that. So how will the temple work progress?
Okay, so,
Family history and all that stuff.
all right. So, first of all, to me, this is an area of cognitive dissonance and contradiction I can't stand. How can we possibly believe that God sanctions corporate structures? Why would God care about... have you ever wondered why the church is organized into the corporation of the First Presidency and a 501c3 organization? Like, what does that have to do with anything relative to God? Yeah, but what does God care about that? Right. So how much does God care about the corporate organization of the church? And if we're really going into a terrestrial glory, into a millennium, do you really think they're going to reinitiate the corporation of the First Presidency in the millennium?
That's what I was kind of wondering too.
Right.
It's going to be done in the millennium instead.
So what has to happen to the corporation? It has to go away. Okay, so that's Revelation chapter 21 or 22, where he says there will be no temple there because Christ is the temple. So now go to remember when Christ is with the 5,000? This is the closest I've ever come to figuring out why there's 2,500 people at Bountiful. In Jerusalem, he meets with 5,000 people, right? What are they doing with him? What is he at that moment when he's meeting with those 5,000 people? He is the temple. So if there's 2,500 in Bountiful, there's half of the 5 parts that make it. Half the 10 virgins. You got 2,500 people. It's the only thing I can think of. So when they arrive at Bountiful, they marvel at all the destruction, all the changes that have taken place. And I suspect they're going to Bountiful because that's the place that they go to for conference, or their Passover feast, or their Sukkot.
But the work and time and everything on the south of the temple of the prophet has said that it will last through the millennium.
I want to see that one. I actually think the people of Salt Lake are just going to go defile it right away. That's Salt Lake.
The building itself might
Yeah, the building might. Oh, okay, what salt? Okay, do you know what the Dead Sea is called in the Old Testament? It's called the Salt Lake. It's never called the Dead Sea. In Hebrew, it is the Sea of Hemalah. Hemalah. He is the, Malah is salt. So it's the Sea Hemalah. Can you think of anywhere else that's called Hemalah? Zara Hemalah. Okay, what does the Lord do to Zarahemla? He burns it. What's the modern Zarahemla? Salt Lake.
The Lord's in charge, so whether we are using the building or not, if you want to.
Okay, so let's take a type and a shadow, okay? COVID. COVID is our type and shadow. What happened to people who fled to the temples on March 26, 2020? They were closed. We had a worldwide pandemic. So if you fled to the temple during the worldwide pandemic, you met closed doors and nobody was there. What does that tell you? When the world falls apart, what's going to happen to the temples? They'll be closed. So you're right. I agree. If the prophet says it'll survive, it'll survive. But you know where I'm not running to? I'm not running to the Salt Lake Temple. No way. Right? No way.
Anyway,
Can I show you something? But can we like formally conclude the video portion of this?
Please like this video, share with all your friends, and subscribe to the channel.